So a lot of you just graduated college and you're thinking about sitting and taking the CPA exam. And hopefully after today's video, you kind of have a really good idea of what exactly you need and the steps you're going to need to take to actually be eligible to take and pass the CPA exam. So let's start off with first things first. You need to make sure your education requirements are done. So this is really changing right now, especially in 2025. A lot of states have reduced the requirement to, so before 2025, a lot of states, you pretty much needed to get your accounting degree and you need to take additional units to be able to not necessarily take the CPA exam, but actually get your CPA license. And thankfully, a lot of states have updated that requirement. So check your state, but just make sure that you have the education requirements is the bare minimum. Before that, you're not going to be able to even be eligible to take the CPA exam, let alone get your license. So the first thing, you need to make sure your education requirements are met. I live in the state of California, and if you're from California, you're still required to meet the 150-hour requirement to, again, take and get your CPA license. So just make sure, first things first, your education requirement. And any school you went to, you're going to need to make sure that you have all your transcripts from either community college or your university. When I applied for the CPA exam, I had to get my transcripts from my community college and my university to make sure I meet the education requirement. Again, I'm from California. Check your state because the state requirements are changing. In my personal opinion, in the next very soon, I would say maybe next year, 2 years, I think all the states are going to lower their requirement because of the need of how much we need good CPAs in the profession. So first things first, step one, education requirement. Check the state you're in, check where you're going to be testing and where you're going to get licensed, and just make sure you meet that bare minimum, because without that, you can't let alone become a CPA, you can't even take the CPA exam. Before, even in California with a higher requirement, you could at least sit for the CPA exam, but then you needed to have the 150-hour requirements done, 150-hour requirement done in order to get your actual CPA license. So just make sure you got that done. Step number two, once you know your education requirements are good to go in your state, you're going to create an account with your state board of accountancy. You're going to obviously fill in your name, all your personal information. You're going to make sure you need to fill this out, because this is going to pretty much be your portal on where you see if you pass the exam, your exam dates, all these different things where you're going to be able to get credit and accredited from the state board of accountancy. So wherever state you're in, just make sure you go to their website. It's unfortunate, but a lot of these state boards are still a little bit antiquated and their websites are kind of outdated, in my opinion, even California's. So that being said, just make sure you visit your state's website. And then just, again, every state is going to have slight variation. So you have to make sure, I literally would need to make 50 separate videos on each separate state in the United States. So just make sure that make sure you check what state you're in, so you know exactly what requirements you're going to need. You're going to need to have. But again, education requirements, step one. Step two, create an account with your state board of accountancy. Once you create your state board of accountancy, there's going to be typically a $100 fee in order to fill out your initial CPA exam application. This is where, again, you're going to be able to submit your transcripts. You're going to pay the application fee. And again, this application fee is usually $100. I last time I checked, and it was very recent when I checked, usually, again, most states and every state's going to vary a little bit, but just make sure, again, you submit your application and you pay this initial application fee, which typically should not be more than $100. Step four, you're actually going to receive your authorization to test, and this is where you're actually going to pay for your exam sections. Each exam section is going to be about, give or take, between $230 and $240. So in total, you should be looking to pay, and just so you budget, if you're going to be paying this out of pocket and your firm's not going to be paying it for you, it's going to be a total of probably $950 to $1,000 for all four sections of the exam: audit, FAR, regulation, and one of the three specialties that you decide to do. And then next, once you do that, you're going to receive your NTS, or what we call notice to schedule. This is essentially your exam ticket. You can now officially schedule your exams. You can, again, audit, FAR, regulation, or any of the three disciplines that you choose to do. I really have no preference over which discipline you choose to do. It's going to be really just up to you. But then that's when you actually going to schedule your exam. And this is where maybe you can look at some of my other videos on how to actually start preparing for the CPA exam, how to test, what to do. But just make sure, I would always I would give myself 6 to 8 weeks for each exam section. I really think that's a sweet spot. I don't think you really need more than that. I think anything more than 8 weeks might be overkill, and anything less than 5 to 6, you're going to be cramming, you're going to be rushing it, and that's not a position I want to be in. You're going to be stressing like crazy. So just make sure 6 to 8 weeks. project outward. Just make sure that, hey, I'm gonna schedule my exam, whatever. It's right now, the date today is literally June 21st. So I'm gonna schedule my exam, July, August, at the end of August or something along those lines, right? Just make sure, again, work backwards, and just once you're 8 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks from your exam, you are now in exam mode. You start doing what you need to do. I'll make a whole separate video on how actually to test and prep for the exam. But for now, all you need to do is once you receive your notice of schedule, you're actually eligible to actually schedule your exams. Next step would be you use a Prometrics you use a Prometric center to actually schedule your exam dates, and then obviously you would prepare using your whatever review course you use. I used Becker. I promote Becker. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not paid to say this. I promise you, Becker was great to me, and I think it's a great program. But there's also a lot of other programs like Ninja CPA Review. I think is very, very, very cost effective, and the owner Jeff is a good friend of mine, so I think they're really awesome too. And there's so many different other review courses, right? But once you get your notice schedule, work backwards. But obviously, before you even schedule your exam, make sure you actually have your review course and what you're going to use to actually take your exam. And that's pretty much it. That's the 6-step process that you need in order to sit and take the CPA exam in 2025. Again, just to reiterate, education requirements. Number 1, that's the first thing you need to do. You need to make sure that's met. Number 2, you need to create an application with your state board of accountancy, whatever state you're in. Step number 3, you're going to submit your application and pay the initial fees, usually $100, not more than that. Step 4, you're going to receive authorization to test and pay the exam sections. Number 5, you're going to actually receive your notice of schedule, which is essentially your exam ticket. You can then schedule your exams, and then you're going to study during this time with whatever course that you choose to buy, and you're going to take and pass the CPA exam, and you're all going to be awesome CPAs. That's it for today's video. If you found this helpful, or if you have any other questions around scheduling, exam dates, how to prep, whatever it is that you need, please leave me a comment below.